Good morning. Welcome back to another weekend workshop. I am excited that you're here with us today because this is the first time we've offered this particular workshop. And I was just chatting with Nicole, who's delivering the workshop today as well. And we're just realizing how important it is for women identifying entrepreneurs who are in that ideation phase, really to start um, zeroing in on, is this going to work? Will it not? So we're in the spaghetti on the wall phase. And so welcome to it because it's going to be a great opportunity for you to learn from Nicole, and I suspect learn from each other in the Zoom chat as well. We love for these workshops to be interactive. So I will just take a moment to say hello. I am Carrie Ramsey, and I'm the project manager for the Weekend Project, which is led by Queen's University. And we do these virtual workshops on a regular basis so that we can keep in touch with our clients and other entrepreneurs so that as women entrepreneurs, we can just keep going and keep growing, right? Because there's always new challenges and there's always new learnings to uncover. And so I'm glad that you have shown up today for this workshop. Why don't you take a moment right now in the Zoom chat, if you feel comfortable, let us know where you're connecting from in the world. If you have a business, let us know what it is. However, today I'm mindful that there may be some businesses in their infancy still. So you might not have even a business name or a website. That's okay. Let us know a little bit about yourselves in the Zoom chat. And as we were just chatting before we hit record as well, there may be some of you who have an existing business, but you're thinking of something new for that business. You're thinking of a new project, a new idea. And again, this workshop is great for sort of testing and validating that type of an idea, or at least getting some parameters around it. While you're just taking a moment, thanks to those of you who are connecting in the Zoom chat, I'll acknowledge that Queen's University is situated on the ancestral territory of the Anishinaabe, the Huron, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. And Nicole is going to do a full land acknowledgement during her presentation today, but I did want to make that acknowledgement as well. It is our family's privilege to live, work, and play on these ancestral lands. So Nicole, I will give you the virtual microphone at this point. It is so wonderful to have you back. Thank you so much. Welcome back to our virtual common room today. We're going to obviously share some learnings and some ideas amongst ourselves. The floor is yours. Thanks so much and welcome back.
Awesome. Thanks, Carrie. I always love joining you and your group and all that. I love your energy. I love everything about it. So happy to be back and to share something. I think it's so important for entrepreneurial minded thinkers and doers is this validation piece. And let's have some fun with it. We've got 90 minutes together and I'm so thrilled to be back with you. So first, let's do the territorial acknowledgement. I always am grateful for getting a chance to do this. Let's take a moment to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples of the lands we are on today. While this virtual platform brings us together from across Turtle Island, the RISE head office is located in Toronto, the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, which is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. And we acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. And of course, as settlers on this land, it's always good to take time to reflect on our role, our relationship with all Indigenous peoples, and in that spirit of being able to work together for a better and equitable future. So whatever that means to you, I invite you to think about that and reflect on that as we spend 90 minutes together this morning in a learning virtual environment. Okay, so a little bit about RISE. This may be the first introduction for some of you for RISE as an organization. I've had the absolute privilege and pleasure of being connected with RISE for, I think, about 5 years now in different capacities. Really, what RISE is a national organization and we work at the intersection of mental health and addictions and self-employment. So if anybody has an interest in self-employment, whether it doesn't matter what size of business, if it's seasonal, if it's big or small, doesn't matter. And I'd self-identify as having a mental health or addictions challenge at any point in your lives, then you could be eligible to be a Rise client and access the support and all that that's available through Rise as an organization. So, a little introduction of Rise, I think a fabulous organization that I'm so thrilled to be connected with. Real brief kind of background on me as your facilitator. So I've been in this entrepreneurship space for my whole career, 20 years and counting now, and have worked with a whole bunch of entrepreneurs, primarily in the Atlantic Canada region, because I am based here in Halifax. Um, and, I'll seeing, all those ideas, the different types of industry in the different sectors, all the things. Products, services, and all that. I've learned a ton. I've shared a ton. I scratched the entrepreneur itch for the very first time myself about 9 years ago now. And since then, I've launched 3 different businesses of my own. They all have different things that they do. And I'm an open book when it comes to sharing my lessons learned and all that. And I often, sometimes without even intentionally thinking about it, kind of weave those lessons and stories through the sessions that I do. So I'll share some of that with you today as well, as it helps to kind of put some context around some of the stuff that we'll be doing together. So that's a little bit about me. I'm thrilled to be here with you. Some brief housekeeping stuff. So I know Carrie had mentioned this a little bit, but we always ask to mute your microphones because sometimes you get that background noise and we don't even know it. And I've heard some really interesting background conversations happening sometimes on workshops, and it's always fun, but it could be distracting. Keep your camera on if you're comfortable with doing that. As a virtual facilitator, it's always nice to see human faces out there. So I do appreciate you doing that. All of Rise workshops are about mutual respect and about self-care. So recognizing you're in an environment where you're sharing and you're learning, and some vulnerable things might come up, and you have different ideas that you're hearing about and all that. And it's all about a place of respect for each other in this virtual learning environment. Self-care is a big part of our work. We don't have a scheduled break like through the 90 minutes, but at any point, if you want to take a step back and have a break for yourself, by all means, please do that. Participate as much as you can, as much as you want. This is for you, and recognizing everyone has their own individual, way you want to show up, right? At the end of the workshop, you'll get a participant survey. Your feedback's really important to us. It helps kind of guide the work that we do and make sure we're on point with it. And you can get a copy of the slides. You'll actually be getting that. You don't need to email training@Rise Helps. You will get a copy of the slides, and as well as some of the worksheets and the activities that we're going to go through together today. Sound good? Any questions so far? No? Okay. And Carrie, are you monitoring the chat? I don't see anything there.
Yep, I'll take care of that.
Oh, I see Melissa did undergrad at SVU. That's so cool. Not far from me at all. Awesome. So our workshop goal is to guide you through the next steps of discovering if your business idea has potential. So it's really around looking at some activities, some ways that we can do that, and building the confidence that the idea that you have has a big enough market potential, has enough customers out there, potential customers that need and need and want what you're going to be offering. So it's all about that, and we'll do some activities together and kind of broadening the lens of how we approach answering some questions around, does my idea have potential? So here's our agenda. We're going to look at what is idea validation and why does it matter. We'll go through some activities that help us get to know our customers. Then look at how does our idea fit into the market. And then we'll be looking at kind of bringing it through that rigor of, is the idea that we have, is it feasible and is it viable? And we'll work through some activities together in each of these points. And then we'll look at some additional resources and some next steps. and have some time at the end to answer any questions, and you'll have all the worksheets and all that you can take away and continue to kind of develop this practice of idea validation. So first, I'll ask a question. I'll pose it to you. You can come off mute and share, or you can pop it in the chat. What is idea validation? When you hear those words, what comes to mind? Anybody want to share?
I can start. I
Yeah.
think it's basically seeing if the idea that you have, if people are in the most crass way, are they willing to buy it? Are they willing to pay for it?
Bang on. Bang on. That was a nice succinct answer, Stacy. That was great. Thank you. So yeah, it's the process of where a specific product or service or business idea is tested in various ways to determine its viability and financial sustainability. So just that, is there enough customers out there that want it and will pay the money to get it? So it's around that, and it's that process that we're going to test that out. We're going to ask the questions. We're going to dive deeper into understanding the potential that our idea has. Why do you think it matters? You know what it is. Why does it matter?
Just to help with the risk, I would say. Right?
De-risking.
Yeah. Like if you see the potential, then you can, make that strategic move and take a calculated risk versus just kind of, like you said, spaghetti to the wall. Like that's not everyone has that, I guess, flexibility to kind of just, try anything. There's, financial responsibilities and time and all that.
Exactly right. It's time, it's money, it's your effort, like all the things that you put into it. It allows you to de-risk it and move forward in that strategic way. Right? So yeah, exactly that, Melissa. And it's looking at testing assumptions. So it forces us to focus on facts. So sometimes we assume that we know something about our customer or about the potential. What validation does is it makes us and forces us to focus on what is real, what is actual, and that's the facts. What is going on out there? It removes that personal bias, and we all know what it's like. You get so close to your idea, and it's your baby, it's your thing, and it's hard to kind of see beyond this greatness that you have, right? And so it helps you to remove that, and you get as close to the customer, the potential customer, as you can to get the insights, to get the numbers, not drama. Love that, Carrie. Numbers, not drama. You're going after the facts, right? And it's around let the numbers prove that there's something here. Yeah, exactly. And to your point, Melissa, is de-risking. So it's like, how can you do that in a calculated way? Helps you save time, save money, save effort, and you're doing it for the right reasons. There's a big enough market out there for it. As we do this idea validation, we are learning a ton of valuable insights about our customer because we are getting closer to them. And the closer you get to them, the more you're going to know about them, the real stuff you're going to know about them. So if you remove that personal bias and you ask the right questions, it will fuel and inform all the steps that you take from that point forward. So you're gaining all kinds of valuable nuggets of insight about your customer. We know that if validation happens, it's increased chance of success. That's a byproduct of doing that work. And a big one is confidence booster. It's like I always say, people, you do a business plan or a business model canvas or whatever tool you want to use. at the end of the day, yes, that's a document that you put together, but it's one of the biggest sources of confidence boosting that you can get as an entrepreneur approaching an idea. You're doing all the things and you know you're moving forward because you should, not because you could. And that's a big distinction around ideas that are like, oh, it's a fabulous idea. And I'm doing this because everybody wants it. It's like, no, I'm doing it because I should do it, not just because I could do it. And that's a distinction. And it helps you answer this question. How do you know your customers want this and will pay what you need to charge for it? So back to that point around what does validation mean is like, you got enough customers out there, they want it and they'll pay for it. So you can't answer that question unless you've done that heavy lifting up front to know. I'll share a really quick story with you. So I was working with a client. This was probably about a year ago or so. And he had put together an absolutely beautiful business plan. Like this plan would have got an A++ if it was submitted for a course, right? Beautiful plan, so well written, all the right categories, all the right stuff in it. And as I went through the plan, I still didn't understand how he knew the customers wanted this thing. And he was spending big money, he was investing into it, he was all in. Like this had to work. This was his thing. And I remember talking to him one day and I said, well, how do you know the customers want it? And I stumped him. I really stumped him. And I don't think he liked the fact that I asked that question. He retreated a bit and he went kind of silent on me for a few days. And I was like, oh no, what happened? What did I do? And he came back and he said to me, he said, Nicole, I understand that you weren't being hurtful. You were being helpful when you asked that question. And he was really stumped because he realized he couldn't answer it. He couldn't answer that question. He didn't know why. He didn't know enough about the customer to know confidently that they wanted this thing. He was building something around the thing that he liked, and he was building something around what he wanted to do. And he didn't have that insight from the customer to know there was a big enough need for it and they would pay for it. So I share that story because I remember it's one that sticks with me. And it really speaks to the importance about validation and doing that work up front, which sometimes doesn't feel the easiest to do. And we got to put our heart on our sleeve and we got to really reveal a lot in doing that work, but it's worth it. It's so worth it. Okay, so let's take 2 minutes and think about what your product or service is. And you can share that in the chat if you like, but just take 2 minutes to think about it. And it's good to have that kind of as our foundation as we start to build on these activities around validation. So if anybody wants to share, I know a couple people did in the chat, and I'm just going to open that up. Okay, Melissa has a business, Visually Speaking, in Kingston. Awesome. Kimberly is also in Kingston. Kimberly Nicole Marketing. Awesome. Elijah, did I say that right? Elijah? Hairstylist based in Kingston. Curly hair specialist. Awesome.
Hello,
Is it Aaliyah?
it's Aleja.
Aleja.
Aleja. Oh, beautiful name. Aleja. Nice. And we've got Stacy, also in Kingston. Businesses is Straight Up Leadership. Awesome. Awesome. Okay, did I miss anybody? Everyone? Okay, so everyone, you got your product or service down. Okay, now we get into the meat of this thing. So I'm going to put in the chat a worksheet, and these are fillable worksheets that you can use. Or you can simply just use what you see on the screen and just scratch out some notes. So I want you to think about, for the next 5 minutes, who has the needs or problems that you solve. So here are a number of prompts, and I'll go through and I'll find my prompts here. So here's some examples that we came up with, and you can add to this. You can fill in as many as you like. But think about, who do you provide the most value for? Who could you reach the fastest, the cheapest, the easiest? Who is most likely to pay? Are they an end user or buyer? Who is most connected to potential customers? Who influences the buying decision? Other stakeholders, other buyers? Who are you most comfortable interacting with? And any other category that you can think of. So I'm going to put in the chat a worksheet, and I'm going to ask you to take 5 minutes to go through and think about that individually, and then we'll come back and we'll have a bigger conversation about it. Yes, Aleha. Yeah. Hi, Aleha, go ahead.
Hello. Oh, okay. Let me change my. Okay. So for who do I provide the most value for? I think is people with natural texturized hair looking for low maintenance hair care for natural look. Some of them are embracing their silver hair and have stopped use chemical treatments.
Okay.
So my product is just haircuts. I want to specialize in haircuts, leaving behind the chemical services, so color and all color or like changing the texture. I want to focus on just the haircuts and moisturizing treatments.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Getting the hair healthy.
yeah. So who could you reach the fastest? I think my current client base. And who is the most likely to pay? I think people who wear their hair curly or wavy 80% of the time, as I offer specialized haircuts techniques for them. And then I only work until 5. So who is most connect to the potential customer? I think things like yoga studios, wellness centers, refinery shops, and maybe other hair salons.
Okay. Yeah, excellent. Excellent. And you just got to 5. I know 5 minutes isn't very long, right, to think about it and to go through it. But I do encourage you to and you'll have these as worksheets, right, to continue the work after this, because we won't cover everything. There's questions that you'll answer after this workshop, and that's when you kind of start doing the work,
Great,
right,
thank you.
after the workshop, which is cool. So yeah, so thanks for sharing that.
Could I add something?
Yes,
that
please,
okay?
Melissa.
I
Yep.
was just thinking too, because I have naturally wavy hair and also a lot of like allergies and skin sensitivities. So like product use is a real issue. So there's also kind of a market for people who are probably needing alternative styling that is not in a conventional salon. So just think about maybe that audience as well.
That's a great idea. I have had some clients asking for scent-free or maybe some specific ingredients free.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
That's great. That's awesome. Anyone else want to share what anything that came through, or maybe an idea or a new thought that came as you went through this exercise?
I don't mind sharing something because there's a small group.
Yes, please, Melissa.
So when we were thinking of like the buyer and the end user, I kind of have those two pronged, because although my materials are educational based and they're geared towards what I call the learner, which could be really any age. You can be an adult learner, but primarily you think of youth. The person that's going to be, or the audience that's going to be buying things, are going to be those that are connected to the learner. And primarily probably those that are in the professional support field, so in schools, in clinics, and therapeutically. So that would be kind of probably my easiest audience to relate to, because I know from my professional lens that these resources are lacking, and there's a lot of effort going into making the modifications to what's existing out there, or that they present inherent barriers because of their complexity, which, you know, makes it inaccessible for a lot of learners. So yeah, so I was just kind of making that distinction. But the parental and guardian and caregiver audience is kind of a secondary target, because I think through the professionals and the clinicians with their background knowledge and accessing and kind of realizing the value in the resources, that will trickle down to them. And then I think later on down the road, having that wider audience to see how these things can work in the homes, but in marketing it in a different way.
Okay, yeah. And that's it too, right? Like marketing it in a different way, because you recognize the needs of that audience are different, right? And you got
Well, and the vocabulary and, you know, like right, and what the concepts are, like they're going to have that background knowledge in those professional fields. Yeah.
So true. Awesome. Thank you, Melissa, for sharing that.
No worries.
Anyone else want to share what came through, or any kind of little nugget that nugget of a thought that
I can. So I don't know if it's actually the easiest, but so I'm straight up leadership, and I provide services to predominantly healthcare leaders. So to make them more effective leaders. So my target market is really the buyers for it are the managers of managers, or the healthcare, or the HR people. Those are the people that will actually buy the service. But what came up for me as I was working through, actually I got a little bit stymied on 5. Like I've spent a lot of time thinking about 1 through 4. In terms of who's actually buying, like what are the benefits, all that kind of business. But who is connected to the potential customer? That one, I was like, I've always been targeting actually the people that are buying. So it's an interesting question.
Yeah. Who's connected? And it could be the dotted line or the solid line or whatever, right? To that target group. Did you have any ideas for that?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
I had nothing, Nicole. So it's something definitely for me to be thinking about.
I just slid in there, Stacy. I put like maybe HR, like human resources, which tends to oversee professional development in general for managers. Even senior administrators are hired through HR. So because they're not private companies that I don't think that you're talking about. So I think that a main portal would be HR.
Yeah, and that's typically where I've picked up business in the past. So interesting.
Do you think of it as like offering your services and expertise in like a master class kind of idea, where it's the people themselves that are trying to improve their leadership skills and they're kind of seeking that expertise, you know, outside just for their own kind of personal development and growth?
Yeah, I have found that it's not usually the latter, honestly. Melissa. It's usually their managers. It's a good idea, but I would love that. But it's usually people in healthcare are sometimes a little bit funky, like they don't invest in themselves. So it's their manager that is investing in them, or their HR department. So anyway, that was me. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking too, like you hear more of the like the holistic kind of healthcare providers now, right? Where you have a blended share, like a blended share. It could be physio, could be osteo, could be chiro, like they're all in a shared environment. Like if there's something like that as a group, right? Where they're invested into this collaborative center together, and maybe there's a opportunity there for leadership development and skills. And
Yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate that. Appreciate both of your comments, because typically, again, I've focused on people who are at least partially ministry funded. And
Yeah.
what you're picking up is the private funded.
yeah, and that's a really good point, Stacey, because sometimes we can think, okay, this is the customer who needs what I'm doing, but if they don't have the budget or the money or the influence or the power
Mhm.
to lean into your service, then you can knock on that door all you want,
Mhm.
and it's not going to open for you, right? Like it's so recognizing that. And I think back to that example where I shared with the gentleman who invested a lot of time and money and effort into this beautiful business plan, but didn't knock on the door to say, do you want this thing that I'm doing? And it wasn't able to kind of reach it, right? Like there was no way in. So yeah, so it's a lot to think about, right? I'll just share really quickly, like the end user and the buyer, like how this showed up for me in my business. So my second business I launched was a jigsaw puzzle business, and what made us unique was that we would take my sister's poetry, and she's got published books of poetry out there, and just messages of love and hope and all that, and we layered it on an image that really connected to the words, and then we converted it to a jigsaw puzzle. Beautiful. Like we didn't create a whole new industry or anything like that, but we reimagined how that product could be done. We thought our main customer, was going to be the person who does puzzles all the time. They're going to be this person. They love this. They're going to see it. They're going to be like, this is amazing. I want this. What we realize is that is not our customer, our primary customer, because that customer is used to going to Costco and buying 3 in a pack for $20. They weren't going to pay the $30 for this unique, beautiful puzzle. Even though they liked it, they weren't going to pay for it because it was more than what they would pay for a puzzle. But who would buy it is their loved one, who would see it and go, this is a beautiful gift for my mother, my aunt, my brother, my cousin, whatever, because they love puzzles. So we had to really reimagine how we approach that, because our end user and our customer, our buyer, right, was different. Does that help kind of like share what the distinction is there, and how it's important to know that as early as you can, because you could be kind of jamming that square peg in the round hole if we haven't got that figured out right. So that was a really, and we didn't know that until we were in the business doing it, right? It was one of those things we had to really kind of adapt and like figure out, how do we approach this? And then our marketing became around great gift idea for that loved one, right? So it's just really, you reimagine how you do it. So a lot of times you don't know until you're actually in doing it and doing some test runs and things like that. Okay, so you can continue working on that. This stuff doesn't just end after this workshop. I do encourage you to keep filling this stuff out, and doing the work. The more you know, the better. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the second worksheet, and this is about what do you need to know about them. You've identified who some potential customers could be. Now you got to think about what you need to know about them. And here we've got some prompts, and again, you can add to it. It's around, okay, frequency of buying, like how often do they need this thing? Is it once a year? Is it every month? Is it only on special occasions? Like all of that stuff. You start to think about that. Are they looking to buy, or they use the product online or in person? How much are they willing to pay? What are the alternatives? What affects their buying decisions? Are they using something similar now? What expectations do they have? How much do I need to charge? If looking for you, how would they find you? That's an important one to think about. If they were looking for what you offer, how are they going to go and find you? Is it a want or is it a need? So I know we've only got 5 minutes to focus on it. So there could be ones here that you want to dive into a bit deeper. By all means, please do that. But think about this for 5 minutes. We'll stay here, and then we'll come back and again, well, you can share as a group. Okay, anybody want to share what came up for them for this worksheet? What do you need to know about your potential customers?
I was thinking as I was looking through the questions that really, unless you talk to your customers, you don't know the answers to these questions. If you're in the early
Mhm.
stage, it's like, some of it might be a bit of guesswork.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Exactly. Can I
Yeah.
go first?
Yes, please.
I got super excited about these exercises. So the frequency of buy-in for my curly hair clients is not like so often trimmings as a client with straight hair. So I think 3 to 6 months. Some of them go for twice a year haircuts.
Okay.
And it's mostly in person, though I could offer online classes for self-band trimmings. Some other stylists do. Some other examples I have seen. And how much are they willing to pay? In that case, I'm only sure about they are willing to pay my prices right now, but I don't know how to determine how much are they willing to pay. So here I will really value some help there. And what are the alternatives will be a regular wet haircut or a DIY haircut at home. Some people with curly hair, they used to cut their own hair, and maybe driving to Toronto or some other town with a specialist. And what affects their buying decision, I think, is like three main factors will be the first. I have hard times pronouncing this word. Perceived authority, the perception of my authority, or how the stylists project or sell themselves.
Your expertise and how you,
Yeah. And social proof, so they do check reviews and word of mouth, and then the portfolio.
Okay, examples of what you've done and what you can do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for number 6, are they using something similar now? I think they are mostly going to some other town, or they could go to, like, when they visit Ottawa or Toronto, they get their haircut there. And what expectations do they have? I think some of my clients have told me they expect a confident hairstylist, a confident specialist, so they feel safe on the chair, trusting this person knows what they are doing. And yeah, I only get to number 7.
It's hard to do all 10 for sure, right? In 10 minutes or 5 minutes. A couple of things came up as you were saying that, and now it just went and left me. It left me. Oh, you were talking about DIY. When some people do it themselves, right? I don't know, there's like tutorials or something or that you can share about how to do that properly so that it could, I don't know if there's a way how to do that in share your expertise.
Yeah, what I have seen is there are some stylists who are so booked out, then they can take like more clients. So instead of saying no, they offer classes to rent. So you rent this class for 6 months of a year or a year, so you can self trim your hairs. Or maybe the stylist rate is very high, so you can go to them twice a year, and then you rent their class for, I don't know, less than half, maybe a quarter of what they normally charge for a haircut, and you can trim your hair within this month. So you go twice a year to them, and then the rest of the time you can have like twice trimmings, do it yourself at home. So that's the model I have seen.
Yeah, yeah. Carrie just put in there too, like, or maybe selling your products in a bundle, a kit for the DIY people.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what you just shared, like an example of how that could look, right?
Yeah, that would be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And Melissa said YouTube, being on YouTube and sharing that way. You would have a really good presence on YouTube. I think online, like you could really, you would come across really like likable and integrity and all that stuff, right? That you do, which is, like you said, important to your customer.
Yes. I have experience with this in Colombia when I worked my personal brand, but now I'm starting all over here in English. So it has been challenging for me.
But that's a part of your authenticity as well. I wouldn't worry about being perfect with English. That's a part of who you are. Just put it out there because that's your brand. That's who you are. Yeah.
Thanks.
That's your brand. That's part of you. That's yeah. Oh, so cool. Anybody have anything for number 9? Like if your customers were looking for you, where would they find you? We might not have got a chance to get to it in the exercise, but thinking about it.
This one I was just thinking beyond, the obvious ones like the website and the social media. I mean, there's a lot of professional directories out there, and I find increasingly people are going to directories when they don't know people because it's almost like a little bit of a trust factor, like an authority. I think Aleja was talking about that credibility. So directories, if there are for your industry, I thought I'd just mention that. I know Stacy is on a bunch of those, I believe, or parts of memberships, professional memberships. So I thought I'd just mention those, even though nobody else. I mean, I know there's the social media and the website, which everyone would have, but thought I would just mention that.
That's great, Carrie. Yeah.
So here in
go ahead,
Kingston, it have been working really well. Google Maps, in my case. I'm working on reviews. I'm having reviews there. Especially, I ask my clients to make sure include the keywords curly hair, aleja, and haircut. And most of them are posting pictures with their reviews, which is really amazing. They are willing to do that. I know they got super excited to finally find someone who can help them. And that works really well. I'm trying, because I have this vestibular migraine, I'm trying to get a bit off from social media. I know Instagram is huge for hairstylists, but I'm trying to explore some other sources of traffic. And so I have been learning SEO, and that have worked well for me.
Yeah. People finding you that way, and then that social trust.
Yeah.
Yes, Melissa.
My I'm in Kingston too, and my friend has like a cookie business, and she's really found workshops have really done a great, like really taken off. And there's a lot of places in town that are trying to rent their spaces sometimes, so that way they're getting more clients to see their venue. And so she can host there, and then you say bring all your friends, and you can give tutorials, you can do some consultations, and maybe like that's a way to kind of expand, like bring a friend and you can get 10% off, you know what I mean, that kind of thing, to an untapped potential.
Nice. Nice. Yep. That's great. Thanks, Melissa. That's a great idea.
It's working well for her.
Yeah. And we'll cover some of those like ways that we can experiment in our businesses to see, right? If we can capture an audience and grab their attention and all that. We'll talk about some ways that we can do that. Carrie put in here, I think potential customers find people at conferences and events. Again, a chance to meet and get to know and trust them. There's something about that in-person connection, right? That relationships and that social trust and all of that are so important to things, to your customers, kind of finding you and getting to know you. There's a lot of different, did anybody add anything to this that wasn't here, like as a prompt to think about, or? Okay. Any other questions or thoughts on that? What do you need to know about them? Because this is really important for us to think about as we kind of move into the next stage around how do we go now and find this information? Like in order to find it, we need to know what is it that we actually need to know. Like what are the key things that we need to know about our customer? Okay, let's move to the next one. And here, I invite you to think about it for a minute, just individually think about how, knowing what you need to know about your customers, how can you go and get that information? How can you go and get it? What are some of the ways for your own business that you would go and get that information? So just for a minute, think about it. There's no worksheet. Actually, there might be a place that you could fill in stuff, but you don't have to worry about doing it on a worksheet right now. Okay, so just a minute, you had to think about it. Anybody want to throw some things out? I'm gonna take notes here on our screen as you do that. We'll capture all these ideas. So just start throwing them out to me. Ways that you can get this information.
Talk to the buyers, present what you have and see what their comments are.
Yep. Talk to the buyers. In what ways would you talk to the buyers?
Well, I'm actually trying this right now, Nicole, and I've got people that have bought from me in the past, and so I'm rejigging my offerings. And so I'm
Okay,
going
yeah.
in to buy them coffee, show them what the offerings are, and then ask them specific questions.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yes.
So I'd be very happy to hear what other people have done.
Yeah. Yep. That's a great way though. Talk to your past customers. It shows that you value their insight, right? And that's going to help inform what your next offering is. So you're designing something around what they do. That's brilliant. And talk to them. All right, any other ideas came up? How do you go and get that information you need?
I was thinking you could actually just do a test, and then get feedback
Do
on
a
your
test. Yep. Do a test, get feedback. Yep. I see Melissa says give samples. Give sample products. Try. Get feedback. Yep. Surveying. That's another one. Surveying your clients. Yep.
And back to someone had mentioned workshops, which I think Melissa, which I totally agree with. That's one thing I believe has a big impact. And so when you're doing workshops, there's different things you can do to survey even within the workshop or ask questions within. So it's like live questions and kind of what we're doing here today, really, but
Yeah.
it's also giving you market research, right? On what people, so you're listening to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I wondered also about going to people in the same, doing kind of the same things, but maybe in a different market that you're not direct competitors, and asking them in terms of what's worked, what's not worked, you know, what are the challenges, how
Yeah.
did they overcome them, that kind of thing.
Yep. Say folks in similar industry. Is that fair to say?
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. All right. Anything else coming up?
I'm also going to drop a link to, I think it's ask, what's it called exactly here? Answerthepublic.com. And it's some other people have suggested it a lot. I don't use it myself, but you go in there and I think you have two or three chances to ask for free, like what people are searching for online. And it's
Okay.
people
Yep.
swear by it. They really use it a lot. So anyways, I put it in the chat there. I might start using it now that I remembered it.
Yeah,
But
that's
it's
awesome.
been suggested to me before.
Okay. Nice. Nice. Any other thoughts coming up? Folks? You can try to sell without actually selling it, like challenge yourself to kind of work on your pitch a bit and see what kind of feedback you get. You can practice your pitch. I'm going to add that in. Your pitch and see what kind of response, right?
Another thought I had that one of our weekend clients did, which was brilliant, was she didn't have the product yet, but she pre-sold. And so even before it was developed, so this works for service or product, you can pre-sell. Hey, this is going to come in January. Sign up now, they pay now. And if nobody signs up, that's the message that something's wrong, whether it's price or product. So it's a way to test before actually doing the thing. And I suppose worst case scenario, you had no one buy, you could just cancel or say we're not doing it. But yeah, pre-selling, I found quite a few people, and one weekend client recently had some good experience with that.
Yeah, yeah. And like you see that on Kickstarter and GoFundMe's and stuff like that, right? You can gauge the interest that are from client, and you can also raise capital that way, and you can talk about de-risking. You can get the money in that you need to go and buy the thing, and and you can build your inventory with the money that your customers have already given you for it. So great way to go and test and talk, and it's all about testing those assumptions to see if there's enough interest out there. Anything else coming to mind?
I wonder if there are like industry reports, like surveys, but I don't really know how to access that information. So
Okay.
any ideas on how to get that information?
Yep. Like Stats Canada or
Yeah.
through Industry Canada. There is I'll grab the link. I don't have it handy right now, but I could grab the link and send it to you, Carrie, where you can find all different industry statistics. Yeah. And it talks about like average revenue, average like cost of rent, like different things based on industry, and you can get really kind of, it talks like macro level, but then you can get really micro in the detail that you get as well. I'll share that. One thing I did for me is I acted like a customer. I pretended like I was a customer and called the places that I knew could be connected to customers. So for example, I called, at the time it was called Destination Halifax, and I pretended like I was calling this I was asking them if they knew where I can go to rent a mobility scooter for my sister who's coming to visit, just to see what their response was, just to see what the solution was. And they had sent me to a bunch of places that actually don't rent things. So that would have been a bad kind of experience, right? So I was gauging information like that by pretending to be a customer and seeing what people said, what the solutions were. And then when I did that research and I came back full circle and went back to them to say, I'm opening this business. This is what I'm doing. Or would you like me to send information to you? Can I get some pamphlets to you? And they were so thrilled because I was providing a solution to a problem they knew existed. So it's like you can come full circle with it too by acting to be a customer and getting that information. And it's not in a deceitful way; it's in a very smart, clever way. Any other thoughts coming to mind? Oh, also post polls. Yep. Post polls on social. Yep. And see what interest is coming up on socials. Yep. See what potential customers are saying. Let's see. Yeah, we talked about selling samples, like testing things out, giving samples and getting the customer's feedback. That's a really good one. Interviews to key people and potential clients. That's a really important one because it's getting you as close to that customer as you can, and then coming up with the right questions that's going to give you the best intel. And it's again about getting away from your personal bias. So it's not about reinforcing your belief in what you have, but it's about getting real, accurate, truthful facts and information from the customer. So it's that interview, and then whether it's a focus group, whether it's in person, virtual, anything. It's getting that information. Let me see the focus groups. Okay, anything else coming up as we're going through some of these ideas? Let's see. Another one I'll add is review or read customer reviews on competitor sites. Has anybody done that yet? To see? You can find out a lot of information about what an opportunity could be. Perhaps there's a gap in service that your clients want, but the current offerings aren't covering it. So you can come in and kind of deliver on that to them. So you can get a lot of information. Yes, Melissa.
I am finding this one of the trickier parts of me kind of sussing this out, because what I'm offering is different than what's out there. So some of it's inspired by what it's out there, but I don't want to go totally on that information and feedback about what people are seeing and saying about it, because mine is different than that. And there's a system around it. And so it's kind of hard for me to get an idea, because I think that this, the things that I've done to kind of take what's existing from my own personal experience and like with my colleagues, and has kind of like provided some of those answers, but I'm not quite sure of what's existing. Like, for example, there's some digital print resources that are more related to like literacy, and mine isn't more like of the academics, it's more of like the development of like personal development skills and executive functioning and, you know, regulation and emotions and all that. So it's not really comparing, it's like a bit of an apples and oranges, but I can get some data on what their memberships cost and that kind of thing. But I just wonder if that's the best read on what, you know, I want to have the most specific information I can to inform my decisions. So I'm not quite sure what I should be, you know?
Yeah, yeah. It could be even doing a workshop as a focus group to get feedback from your audience on the delivery of the materials, like the content, like all of that stuff. It could be doing some run-throughs, I guess, of the offerings that you're doing. I think interviewing with your specific and intended customer, and getting as much, I guess, understanding from them about what their need is and how it's different than what's currently out there. Like thinking beyond what they can see right now. If anything was possible, what would it look like?
Okay.
And then that could help inform how you approach it.
So you know how you have like pitch decks, which is more like for investment. I'm trying to think of a way to kind of like boil down what I'm offering using visual supports, which is kind of like a workshop, but as a way to kind of, for that feedback idea validation phase. Is that kind of like something I should pursue? That way I can say, hey, this is kind of my concept. This is what I'm coming up with. This is the brand. Can I get some feedback from you and kind of like walk them through?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to slide in with a quick thing, if I may. I don't want anyone to be overwhelmed by all the things on the screen, because you don't have to do all of those.
Exactly.
You just do like you said, Melissa, maybe your best one is talking to people, maybe someone else's best one, but we don't need to do all of them. Oh my God. We'll never start. We will never start the business.
I know. It'd be too overwhelming. Yeah.
And I think, and in this is sort of the research phase too. Like, to someone else's point, sometimes you just have to launch it and see what the market and the market will correct it, right? So I just want to urge you not to be lost in this for months and years and never launch the business. Yeah.
Well, and because my resources now, I don't want to take up too much of the time, but like, because they're all connected, if I were to trickle them out on, say, a Teachers Pay Teachers or on a Twinkle, you wouldn't get the system. And which is why that's caused me to hesitate, because I don't want my first impression to be that these things are one-off, that they are connected and they're like part of the systematic. And so that's why I'm kind of like, I'm having to pivot a bit with what I was planning on doing, which was just kind of like gradual release. So now I'm thinking, now I need to more like present the idea and the concept, get some feedback, have some target sample titles that would benefit certain therapeutic clinician interventions based on all my kind of networking, and then get feedback on them. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'll try pursue that.
And it has to feel right for you. It has to feel right for you, and whatever it is that can get you as close to your customer and your client as possible. So whatever that is, whether it's on this screen or not, right? It's and like to Carrie's point, like this isn't everybody go do these things tomorrow. Like there might be 2 of these things that make sense for you and your business, but just to get like thinking about how do you go and get information about your customer. That's the goal. The goal is to get close to your customer and know and strip away that bias thinking and that predetermined kind of like, I know this is the best thing because of whatever. You just cut through that noise and you get to the heart of what it is. Yes, Stacy.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is at all helpful for you, Melissa, or not, but just things are popping up for
Mhm.
me as you're talking. Not really sure what the business is exactly,
Yeah.
but my kiddo is 24 and he has autism, and so when you talk regulation and all this kind of stuff, you're like speaking my language.
Yeah.
So, like I belong to a lot of parent Facebook groups in Ontario. Sometimes there's providers that will come on and say, I'm not selling, but I would appreciate your feedback. Are there some parents that are willing to assist me with this? I'm developing this.
Okay.
That's one thing that I thought of. And then the second thing is I do follow some people and they're in the US. So I'm not
Mhm.
sure, like if you've probably done all kinds of market research, but there's one gal that I really love is Counselor Chelsea,
Okay.
counselorchelsea.com. And
Okay.
she is actually, and there's a speech language path as well that I follow, but she is
Nice.
focused on elementary educators.
Okay.
And providing them resource very similar to what you're saying. So I'm wondering if some of the feedback from those kind of peoples, if they're even outside of our jurisdiction,
Okay.
might help you. And my last thought was, because you're delving, it sounds like, into emotional regulation as well as some other things.
Mhm.
My besties are always my OTs
Yeah.
on that. And so I'm wondering, are there some OTs out there that, could provide some feedback to?
Yeah. Yeah, because I was having a pre-chat, and so I was actually just diagnosed this fall, but through me discovering the needs of my 3 children, who are also all on the spectrum, it kind of has become my life. And so I do have SLPs, CDAs, OTs, psychologists, and then I was in special education. I'm taking a leave this year, but so it's all been kind of through my experience, kind of where I see the needs. And so I'm trying to kind of, find organic ways to kind of get some feedback, but without having the product ready, like there's a bit of that hesitation too, right? Where I'm like, I'm not ready to get feedback on anything because I don't have anything. You know what I mean? I think there's some of that where I kind of, it gets me to get a bit stuck.
Yeah. Thanks
Thank
for
you for
sharing
that.
that, Melissa. Yeah. That's a really, and Stacy put the link there in the chat.
Thank you very much.
That's really good. And I put in on this list, follow like different thought leaders, right? That are out there doing this stuff and have a voice in the market around, the types of things that you're doing. Okay. I just looked at the time, so I'm going to move on. So there's a worksheet that you'll take with you from this, okay, stop annotating now. A worksheet that you'll take with you. Oh, what just happened there? Ah, I didn't realize it does that. Okay, one second here. Do it clear. So, all right. So all that to say, as you move through that, you're going to be listening to the market. And I love what Carrie said, because you said listening, you're going to hear the market and the market will correct itself. Like it will tell you what is needed, what is wanted. So the important piece here is to remember that the market will always tell you. The market, it tells you whether it needs it, whether it doesn't, whether it's a nice to have, a need to have, a want, like all of that. It will tell you. And then get to know as much as you can about that before you leap into doing the thing. So back to that story about the gentleman who invested in equipment. He completely redesigned a whole room in his house for the offering that he was doing, and there wasn't a market. There wasn't a market. And it's really unfortunate. We never want to see that happen. It's but if you do that validation, and what you might find out is that there maybe what you thought was the offering, maybe there's something else that comes from that that is more attractive and more needed in the market. So it's going to tell you a lot of things. So the lesson here is like listen to it. Listen to it with an open mind. And as you do those activities, because you'll continue this work, this is all part of the process, right? The validating is talking to, getting to know. You'll answer questions like, what is the real problem? How many customers are out there? How much can I charge from this? How much will it cost me? What do I still need to know? These are questions that you're going to be answering as you move through it. And there is a worksheet that I'm going to put in the chat at the end that takes you through some of this. And it will identify some of those ways that you can go and get information. And I encourage you to think about, pick 3 different ways that you can go and get information about your customers, and then put some energy towards that. And you'll see that on the worksheet. You'll get all this in a worksheet. Okay. So now let's look at, is my idea feasible, which means capable of being done or carried out, and is my idea viable? Basically financially stable, financially, sustainable. And I'm just going back to Carrie's comment here. Don't worry about having a perfect product. The market will perfect your product. It'll shape, and you'll hear iterations, you adapt, like all those things. It will happen over time. The more you know, the more you grow. Like it's about that, and it's interchangeable with your once you establish those relationships with customers. So let's look at feasible and viable. And I know I just looked at the time, and we're gonna come through this, and I'll leave you with the worksheet to complete. So when you think about, is your idea feasible? So now we've got that research done where we know who our customer is, we know what they want from us, we know there's a market for it. Thinking about it from that lens of feasibility, it's asking questions like, can I access the resources I need to make this idea a reality? So if there's large equipment purchases, for example, can you access the capital needed to do it? Also, am I the right person to do this? Do you have the skill set and the motivation and the want and the all of the things that you need to drive the business? Do you have that? Are you able to do it? Is the capacity needed in the business more than or less than what you're able to provide and offer? And then, is there a market for it? So you're always going through that lens. Is there a big enough market for this? Is there a market for one, but is there a big enough market as well? And then you start thinking about your idea from a viability perspective. And this is around, the opportunity to reflect on the financial aspects of your business and determine if it's viable. So understanding the importance of all the costs associated with your business, fixed and variable, and knowing the differences there. Important about forecasting your potential revenue. So I'll go through a worksheet, and you'll have that as an Excel document that you can start kind of plugging in some numbers and see how does this work, and how does it show up for you in your business? How many do you need to sell? How much can you charge? Is there more than one revenue stream? These are all questions that you answer as you go through it. Here's a worksheet that we have, and Rise developed this, and it's a very simple worksheet. And I'll send it to you as an attachment. But it allows you to go through, and I'm going to do a new share here so I can bring it up. So it allows you to go through, you can update based on what your offer is. So for example, maybe I'm going to just say puzzles. I'll put in puzzles here. What I'm going to do is I can either put in a cost per unit, or I can break it down and go into more detail. But I'm going to say cost per unit, it costs me, say, $15 to produce it, and I can sell it for $30. So I know I've got a gross profit of $15 and my gross profit is 50%. So basically every dollar that comes in, I get 50 cents of that. That's how we look at that in gross profit. If we move to the next sheet here, analysis sheet, I've got a puzzle. And say I'm thinking I'm going to sell 25 of them. If I sell 25 puzzles in January, I have a gross profit of $375. So that's like the factoring in the cost of the product. From that $375, I have to pay all my other expenses. So it allows you to kind of play with some numbers to see how many things you need to sell and figure out if there's enough money coming in that makes this viable, that makes this feasible for you to do it. So you'll have that as a worksheet as well. And it's very simple to kind of move through it. But play around with some numbers and see what you need to sell. Each one. I'll come back here. Oh, come back here on this one. What you need to sell. And here's what it looks like in oops. Didn't mean to do that. Sorry. Move them back. Okay, so you have that financial worksheet, and that will help you kind of guide through your developing the numbers and putting it all in place and seeing if it lands where you're hoping it lands. And ultimately, as you move through this, you get to answer that question. I know my customer, whoever that customer is, will want whatever your product or service is because you've learned things that you know now, and they will pay X amount for it on a what frequency basis. So you're able to fill that, you're able to answer that sentence. Essentially, when you do that value proposition, value validation work, you're able to answer that question. Okay, I'm just coming through the last part here. There's additional resources in the, there's lots of different websites and stuff that can help you kind of move through this stuff. You have all those web links. Here's what Rise can help you with. There's training, there's lending programs, there's wraparound supports as you move through the process with Rise. As a Rise client, you get access to this online Rise community hub. So there's a whole kinds of different things that you can access through Rise. And here's our website. You can find us there. All the information's on our website about what we do and all of that. And I know I just blew through that last bit a bit, but I'm going to put in the chat here that worksheet, two things, that Excel sheet. Oh, can't be sent because it's currently in use. One sec. I'll close it.
You know what, Nicole, I have them. So if anybody wants to reach out, I'll email them straight to their inbox.
Okay, yep, perfect.
For sake
And
of
you have
time,
that follow-up worksheet as well, like that.
I have all
Okay.
three of them. Yeah.
Yay.
But thank you so much on behalf of all of us. I appreciate it for a deep dive into this topic. I know you guys have to fly off to do different things. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you everyone for attending. We'll see you again next time.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Nicole.
Thanks.
Thanks, Gary.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.